Welcome to Tail Talk Grooming Chronicles with Hound Therapy, the podcast where we talk all things pet grooming, daycare, academy, and more. Hosted by Shannon and Tanya of Hound Therapy, serving pet owners across North Texas. We're here to share expert tips, hilarious pet stories, and the inside scoop on keeping your furry friends happy and healthy. Our motto, humanity over vanity. And don't worry, we don't bite. Let's get started. Who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out?
Today, we are breaking down one of the most misunderstood grooming issues, matting. What is it? Why does it happen? And how to prevent it before it becomes a real problem. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Sophia Yvette, co-host and producer, back in the studio with Shannon and Tanya, professional groomers at Hound Therapy. Hi, ladies. How are you feeling today?
Excellent day.
Great, great. Well, I, for one, am so excited for us to get into this subject today. So let's jump right in. Is your dog matted or just fluffy? How do dogs get matted, and why do some groomers have to say no?
Well, and that's a great question. I will tell you a lot of groomers say no to matted dogs, mostly because it's painful for brushing. It can cause a lot of other problems down the line. You can get bruising, hematomas, skin care problems, nicks, cuts, scrapes. Your blades get hot. Your clippers are overworking. Mats themselves are kind of like little rubber bands. So they wrap themselves tighter and tighter, and they can actually cut off the circulation to your dog's skin. So, depending on how close that is to the dog and what the severity of matting is, there's a lot of reasons that groomers do not want to take that risk. That's not necessarily the case. And here at Hound Therapy, we believe that all dogs, you know, it has to get done by somebody. So we call it a restart or fresh start. And it usually ends up being a shave, and whatever we can get through it with as easily as possible. And we just kind of start over with a learning curve.
It's literally a restart. But I will say the groomers that will shave matting like we do here, you will probably be asked to sign some sort of waiver. Just because we don't know what we're going to find under there. And that's for any shop that will do a dog that's severely matted.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not talking like one or two tangles. I'm talking like the whole dog.
We're not talking about something that we can't brush out or something that just, got away from you yesterday. That said, that, we're not refusing your dog, and we don't refuse. And groomers who are refusing to do it probably because they don't have the skill, or they don't want the liability. We want to protect your dog and give your dog the healthiest option possible. There's a lot of way that mats happen. It's the collar. If you have a harness or a wide collar on, and it's constant rubbing and friction, those areas, it's literally going to, especially in the wintertime when you have a longer coat, you've got static electricity, you have less moisture in there, and it's just going to rub themselves into knots, and they grow just kind of like a vine would grow. Once you've got one that starts, they just continue, and they'll wrap themselves around in any area that's got friction. Whether it's
bathing makes them worse.
Yeah, under the armpits, water. People I hear a lot too. We're washing our dog on a regular basis. Water will tighten a mat, kind of like a rope. If your rope is wet, it's going to tighten that knot. It's much easier to get it out when it's been dry. But if you've got a wet knot that's dried wet, it's going to stretch it that much farther. So it's really important that you have the proper procedures before bathing, and we're always constantly looking for sores and skins and little moles or tags that you've got underneath there. But when we've got a matted dog, we can't see that. We've just got to hope for the best. So we're going in blind with a dog that more than likely it's going to be uncomfortable, to say the least, and perhaps nervous and scared because they're obviously not coming often, or a tragedy or something has happened to prevent you from bringing your dog in. So there's either way, it's not a good situation. And it's usually due to something else that's happening in the
Yeah.
home.
Wow. Now, let's get more specific with this. Can you explain how quickly matting can form, especially in certain coat types?
hundred
I
percent.
would say
Yeah.
in curly coated dogs, probably a couple of days at the very I mean, at that minimum.
Yeah, I mean, dogs, so let's talk about some compaction as well because that's this time of year. So, if your comb doesn't go through, well, we know. I, if you can't comb through your dog's hair, if it's not falling and fluffing around, um, it's probably matted. If you've got a husky or a double coated breed of some sort, or a dog that's got a little bit of an undercoat, that will not necessarily look like a mat, it's compacted, and that is gonna feel something like felt. So if you touch your dog and you can't the skin doesn't easily move when they, like, you flow and movement, yeah, if you've waken up in the morning and you've seen your bed head, right? It's not just brushed, it moves and you can flow it and it looks great, where if you get up in the morning, you got mats, your hair kind of in one spot.
Yeah,
So if your dog's hair is in one spot and it's not moving freely, the chances are that you've got an area that you
yeah,
need to work on. Um, and we've got demos on how to brush. If you're unsure about how to brush, because top brushing or brushing it properly is going to create just as much problems as not doing it at all. So if you're not doing it correctly, it's almost not worth doing because you're going to end up with
yeah,
the same problem, which is matting or compaction. You've got to be able to get from the skin all the way through. And if you can't reach the skin, your dog has got mats or compaction to the point where you're going to have to use more than just a
yeah.
comb or brush. You're going to have a blow dryer or tool. You can stop by almost any groomer, and I can tell when you walk into the door from two
We
rooms
can usually
away.
tell when you walk in the door.
We do a 7-point check. So when we're checking somebody in, we're talking to the client, kind of figuring out what their day is, what's going on, what's happening. But we reach down to see if that dog is friendly and nice and calm. And then I'm going to feel behind the ears. I'm going to feel under their armpits, under the private areas, their tail. I'm going to tip the tops of the ears right around the mouth. And it looks like we're just loving and patting on your
Yeah,
dog. But what I'm
we're
looking
checking.
for is mats and compaction and things that might be a problem for me later.
Or even behavioral
Yeah,
things.
to make sure the dog is
Yep,
nice and not afraid. Um, but matting it's good until it's not, and
yep,
it's kind of like, it's not a hair emergency until you have a hair
yeah,
emergency. So it could be good. If you get to severe matting, that does not happen overnight.
no.
That
Takes
is
months and months
of
to months.
neglect of some sort, of just not doing it, ignoring it, being at a friend's house, out of town, at a daycare where they're not worried about the coat. We are worried about the health and wellness of your dog. So much more so than we're worried about what your dog's, breed should look like or if it's going to be pretty. We want your dog to be healthy. And, sometimes that means a restart. That said, I have seen people that do amazing jobs with their dog and they brush them all the time. But, spring break happens and, your sister's in town and, the kids are out of school and you don't brush your dog that week. You come in and your dog is extra matted. It doesn't mean those aren't mats. We can usually get those mats out because they've
Yeah.
they've happened in a 3-week period or a 2-week period. But they can happen as quickly as, in within 7 days to 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, it starts to turn into a problem.
Wow. Now, final question for you both. What at home habits make the biggest difference in preventing matting?
Brush thoroughly. You should be
All the way down to the skin.
you
You
should
should be able to part the hair and start there.
look at your dog, right? I mean, visually look at your animal when they're out walking around outside,
Mhm.
get up and look. And again, if that coat is moving freely, you're probably kind of okay. If that coat is looking dense or like it's got no movement in it at all, that's kind of a telltale. Having the right equipment, checking behind the ears, as I mentioned before, that 7-point check that we do, feel those are areas they're hidden and people, I'll point them out and they're tight, they're little mats, they're almost always in the same spot. Lower dogs, moisture right at the belly, in the armpits. Their
Always the armpits.
yeah, always the armpits, the potty zones, anything that's either dusting the ground for dirt and moisture, or anything that's got constant friction. Don't leave your harnesses on for a long period of time. If you're walking, comb through it after. If you
Mhm.
do have to leave it on for, several hours for, whatever reason, make sure that you can comb through there, not just brush, but combing through. So, being able to get from the skin down, the hair should part easily. If it doesn't, then making sure you have the right and proper tools to make sure you can isolate that spot so that it doesn't get bigger. Those are probably the most common, and those are at home things, getting your dog groomed regularly. If you want to bathe in between, make sure that you have a plan with your groomer to, hey, you can bathe in 3 weeks, or you can bathe up to 3 weeks because it's
Yeah.
so short. But after that, you want to hold off. Make sure that you brush before you give it a bath. Don't brush after because, as I mentioned, it's going to get worse. So, kind of when you do things, timing matters, and just being aware and having the proper tools at home. Um, we obviously like to put people, uh, hold them to a schedule that's realistic, where you can bring
And
them in.
for their lifestyle. Like, if you
Yeah,
don't have the time to, brush and comb your dog every day, every other day, or even once a week for that matter, you can get like a shorter than probably you would like, but a shorter, fluffier haircut that works for your lifestyle, that works for your um,
y
checkbook,
your budget.
like your budget, things like that, your family.
So hopefully that works
So
for you.
hopefully,
Well, Shannon and Tanya, thank you both for breaking that down for us so clearly. We appreciate your insights and we'll see everyone next time.
That's a wrap for this episode of Tail Talk with Hound Therapy. Ready to book your pet's next groom, daycare stay, or grooming academy tour? Call us at 469-367-0009. That's 469-367-0009 to schedule an appointment. Or visit us online at www.houndtherapy.com. Serving North Texas with expert pet care. Until next time, keep those tails wagging.